Hello, ladies and jelly spoons. Welcome to 24K Movies, TV shows, and video game reviews. The place where our viewpoint is never bought or paid for unless Cheetos wants to read out to a brother. I'll eat some Cheetos on camera. Matter of fact, I can sit back and relax with my favorite bag of snacks and do some movie and TV show and video game tracks. How y'all like that? Just hit a brother up and let me know. Cheetos, Doritos, hell, Funyuns. I'll do Funyuns. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my channel. Um, you're in the game dojo. You guys know where it is. It is incumbent upon me to talk about how the world keeps changing. Everything keeps changing. In a microsecond, everything changes. The things you thought were, wasn't. They call them Mandela effects and everything else. Well, here's something that I never really thought about, and I had to look it up because I was like, that don't feel right. That can't be right. There's no way that's right, but it actually is. One of my favorite TV shows, because I've been doing TV shows a lot lately, is Seinfeld. If you don't know what Seinfeld is, that's Seinfeld. That's right. If you guys don't know what Seinfeld is, you see that? Yeah, Kramer, George, Elaine, and Jerry. Seinfeld. Friends who live in New York. The show is funny. It's probably one of my top 10 funniest shows I ever watched. I've binge watched it many times. I can still binge watch it many times. But in research today, did you know Seinfeld started in July of 1989? Yeah, which technically makes it an 80s show. I have it in my 90s category because most of the seasons took place in 90s, but it did in fact start in 1989, the late 80s. Yeah. I know that don't sound right to you either, because when you look at the time, the fashion and everything, nothing screams 80s. But whether they went back in the CERN super collider and changed everything and we're in a different time frame and a different Earth, and this isn't Earth 616, this is Earth 829 or 614 or 201. Seinfeld began in the late 80s, and my mind is blown. If you haven't watched any episodes of Seinfeld, you can currently find them streaming on Netflix and probably a bunch of other streaming platforms. Kind of think of Friends with a little bit of an R rating. So kind of think of the Friends TV series with an R rating. It skirts the line between obscenity, obscurity, and craziness. Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld being the major contributors of the show. It comes from some very dark places sometimes to some very funny places. But as always, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen Seinfeld, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But I'm just going to jump in and show you a trailer of Seinfeld, and then I'll come back and unpack it for you. Like I said, if you haven't watched an episode of Seinfeld, dude, a lot of people think it ain't for them, and a lot of people are just like, yeah, that's not my type of thing. I felt the same way about Cheers. I felt the same way about Frasier. There's certain things that you don't think you'll vibe with, but if somebody's lucky enough to push their way into your life and show you the error of your ways, it just may change your life. Now, I always want to go where everybody knows my name. Niles is my favorite character. You never know what you're missing until somebody reaches out and kind of pokes you and jabs you in the right direction. The Nightmare Creature actually turned me on the Frasier. I had seen it a ton of times, never really watched it. Cheers every once in a while because of Kirstie Alley, but I never really got into it. But she put me onto that. She also put me onto Gilmore Girls, which I never would have watched if it wasn't for her, which is a great series. I'm going to have to do that one day too as well. She actually put me onto a lot of TV series that I skipped over in my youth and never really watched because it just didn't seem like it would stick out to me. But that's the problem with bias. Sometimes you don't know you need something until you watch it and realize you needed something. There's another show she put me on. I'm a Law and Order guy, cops and all of that stuff. She put me on a show called Homicide that I never really watched before. Most of my favorite actors are in there. It's kind of like a precursor to Law and Order. Even Detective Munch, who's using his name Munch in that series. So it's kind of like watching Law and Order before it was Law and Order.
Basically, in Homicide, Munch was first initially working in Boston, and then he switched over and started working in New York.
That's the Nightmare Creature, by the way, chiming in. So anyway, let me jump you into Seinfeld, the trailer, and then we'll come back and start to unpack Seinfeld. 1989, y'all. 1989, a number, another summer, get down. Sound of Public Enemy, Fight the Power, nothing. Y'all ain't watch Do the Right Thing, Mookie, Radio Raheem, Sal, nothing. My bad. Hey, let's go watch the trailer.
See, we tell them I got an idea for a show about nothing. Exactly. They say, what's your show about? I say nothing. There you go. I think you may have something here.
Have you ever seen Elaine dance?
Elaine dance?
More like a full-body dry heave set the music.
You're gonna be the first pirate. But I don't want to be a pirate. What are you talking about?
You double-dipped the chip.
He lives in a bubble.
Boy.
Nothing for you.
So you think you're sponge-worthy?
Somebody now! Shut up, you old pig!
Seinfeld on DVD.
We're back. So that was a little bit of a Seinfeld trailer. Like I said, Kramer, Elaine, George, and Jerry. The story at heart is about these four friends going through everything in their life as an adult. I always quote from the show all the time for the simple fact that there are so many truth-isms and Seinfeldisms that still exist to this day. Number one, I always talk about how much TV sucks now, how much movies suck now, how much music sucks now, how much video games suck now, because it's prevalent. And the whole thing is, I always quote the same phrase. There's an episode where Jerry and George were writing a pilot to NBC, and this is based off of reality, what really happened with Seinfeld, and they pitched them a TV show. And Jerry was nervous, but George, who always leads with his mouth, says, NBC rep said, well, what's this TV show about? And George says, nothing, absolutely nothing. And Jerry's like, well, no, it's about something. And George's like, no, it's nothing, it's absolutely nothing. And the guy was like, I don't understand. He was like, what did you do today? He was like, I got up, I got dressed, and I came to work. That's a show. And he was like, what? He was like, that's a show right there. And he was like, well, why am I watching it? He was like, because it's on TV. And then Jerry was like, well, maybe you came to work and something happened. And George is like, no, nothing happens. That's the premise of the show. And then the NBC executive was like, well, no, something better happened. And George was like, no, that's the beauty of it. Nothing happens. He was like, so why am I watching it? He's like, because it's on TV. A lot of TV shows, movies, and video games and music now take that premise. Why am I listening to it? Because it's on the radio. Why am I watching it? Because it's on TV. Why did I go to the movies to see it? Because it's at a theater. And these are horrible representations for us to go see a movie, watch it on TV, listen to a song, or play a video game. And the world has caught on to literally taking advantage of us in so many ways. Why are there so many Sharknadoes that actually got made when 20 and 30 years ago we wouldn't have stood for movies like that? Look, there's nothing wrong with a B-rated movie. There's nothing wrong with a C-rated movie. God knows I've watched a ton of them. Mansquito. And then now people are talking about how horrible Howard the Duck was. I found Howard the Duck a great movie. I actually liked it. He's a comic book character, which most of y'all didn't know. Leah Thompson, whatchamacallit, what's his name? He was Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption. Tim Robbins. And, oh, good God, I can't even mention him. Let's just say the principal from Ferris Bueller and the dad from Beetlejuice is also a scientist in it called Jennings. And I thought Howard the Duck was amazing. But they now just fill up things on stations and streaming And people are like, who asked for this? Why do I want to watch this? What is the point of me watching this? And every few and far between, every once in a while, you will get a great show. And I mean, absolutely great show. Just recently enough, Kevin Bacon came out with a show called The Bondsman. Brilliant. It felt like it was another chapter of Supernatural. I would have loved a crossover, completely reinventing both horror on TV, something new, something great territory, and it's canceled after its first season. And you're going to find a lot of your favorite TV shows, and I mean like TV series, and a lot of them have audience ratings out of the door get canceled. Yet the suckiest shows that nobody watches, nobody wants to watch, nobody has even watched, they're in like season 36, season 50, season 112. And it disturbs me that horrible shows get light and greenlit, but when it comes to great shows, and I think maybe that's the point, I think great shows are actually like purveying messages, and they gotta shut that down. Because you can't tell me The Bondsman didn't vibe with a ton of people. Look at the audience score. Look at the ratings. So then why cancel it? Exactly. Buffy got a season 7. Angel, 5 seasons. Everybody talks about those shows and how beloved they are. Grey's Anatomy is on season like 41. You killed off almost every main character you had on that show besides like 1 or 2 people. Why am I watching? NCIS did the same thing. You got a spinoff of a spinoff of a spinoff of a spinoff. And I'm talking about the original NCIS. The original. I'm not talking about NCIS Los Angeles or Sydney or Louisiana or Texas. Like you take a great show and you see the premise of it and you spin it off with different actors and different characters in a different place. And then you rehash the same stories for people to watch it all and over again. Look, if you like CSI, New York, Miami, Texas, I'm not saying nothing wrong with you. I mean, Lord knows I watched the original Law and Order in SVU, but then you got Criminal Intent, then you got Law and Order over in England. Like, there's so many things that you guys keep spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off. If the original is working, keep the original running. Like, I don't understand the premise of that. And if you look at some of the best, highest rated shows, they only get a few seasons. None of them get long runs. And it's insane. It's insane. Like, for instance, The Walking Dead. I would say after the writers were changed, after actors and different contracts and negotiations fell through, the show to me was completely dead. And it's funny to call The Walking Dead show that was once the biggest thing on television, but it just became a point where it was on TV to watch. That's it. And I say that because there was a 2-hour episode about Morgan learning from a cheese master how to make cheese. And the season finale that year was a regular episode length. You wasted 2 hours on Morgan and a cheese master, and your season finale was a regular length. That's what I'm talking about. TV just ain't TV no more. And Seinfeld coined that phrase for me. It's funny, because Seinfeld, of all things, coined that phrases. They coined so many phrases. There's so many episodes that I can literally go into my brain and start snickering and laughing about when it comes to Seinfeld. For instance, every single last one of them have an episode that's dedicated to them, and then they feed off of each other. They interconnect with each other. There's also a host of secondary characters that are not on this poster. Number 1, Wayne Knight as Newman. If you don't know who Wayne is, if you watch the original Jurassic Park, he's Netery. He's Dennis Netery, the guy with all the wrappers around his desk who literally causes the Jurassic Park meltdown. That's Netery. That's Newman in here. And the disdain for Newman, the mailman, is funny because every time Newman appears on the screen, Jerry, and then you have Jerry Seinfeld who looks back on, hello, Newman. Like, there's a singeing hate because they're like, Lex Luthor and Superman, and it doesn't make sense, but it's hilarious the interactions that they have, because every chance Newman gets to screw Jerry, he screws Jerry, and every chance Jerry gets to screw Newman, he screws Newman. But in between of that, Jerry's best friend Kramer is friends with Newman, and they both get into all these horrible things that happen, and you're like, why are they friends? But it works. Elaine, she is the, I love the fact that they chose Miss Dreyfus as Elaine, because her comedic timing is excellent, but she's also a pretty face that adds a lot to the series. You have Jerry, who's the stand-up comedian going through life. He's more successful than a lot of people in the series. You have Elaine, who goes from job to job. She's kind of like an understudy and works for like all these different types of people. You have George, who is the basically general character that most people can relate to. Job to job, failure to failure, trying life, relationships, the male pattern baldness. But George brings an energy to the show that would not be the same without him. And then you have Kramer. Kramer is the comedy and comic relief all the time in the show, but he's also that over-the-top character that we need in our lives. Everybody has a George in their life. Everybody has a Kramer. Everybody has an Elaine, and everybody has a Jerry, if you're not one of those three.
Hell, even everybody has a Newman in their life.
Yes. There's also a lawyer on the show that they all go to who's supposed to be a Johnny Cochran parody. He's funny. There's a lot of stars, too, that appeared on the show. One of my favorite ones was Terry Hatcher, where Elaine walked into the sauna and saw her boobs and tried to prove to Jerry and the rest of the friend that her boobs are fake. And the entire time, Jerry hadn't seen them yet, but he was trying to figure out whether or not he wanted to keep dating her because he's so superficial. And now he found out she has fake boobs. He doesn't know if he wants to date her. It's weird because Jerry sabotages his own relationships. Elaine sabotages her own relationships. George sabotages his own relationships. The only person that really scores almost every time is Kramer. And it's funny because Kramer basically doesn't have a job for most of the series. And then you find out he was laid off because they were on strike. And you're just like, how is he affording his apartment? How does he live here? How does he do it? There's a lot of questions. But you can ask yourself that about the Bundys. How does Al afford this house and his car on a nickel a week salary? It's not possible. But it's hilarity, because the things that ensue because of it allows these weird adventures to go off in Crazy Town. Jerry Seinfeld has had grounded episodes like the Cable Man and Jerry being shot by the police detectives and Kramer holding him, my little cable boy, to them popping a Bubble Boy's bubble when they went on a trip because he couldn't be around germs. They all make a bet, and this is going to sound bad, but the episode is called The Bet. Basically, they all start talking about how George got caught masturbating by his mother. And she fell down and got hurt and went to the hospital. And everybody judges him for this. But then he says, it's inhuman not to do it, and none of you couldn't do that. Matter of fact, I bet you none of you guys can go a certain amount of time without doing it. And Jerry was the first one to say, I'll take that bet. And then, of course, Kramer jumps in. And then Elaine, of all people, you would expect her to be the opposite of the group. She was like, okay, I'm in. And they're like, no. There's no way. It's so easy for a woman not to do it. Like, it's something that normally happens to you guys. So they up her bet in to a couple $100 so that she can take part in this. And the whole episode centers around trying not to investigate your crime scene. That's the whole episode. And it's funny because you wouldn't think it would be hilarious as it is, but it's true to life. In the case of Kramer, he walks into Jerry's apartment. He looks out the window, and across the building, he sees a naked woman who's exercising and walking around her apartment. So, of course, that's the first one. And it's funny because he looks at her and he watches her, and then he has to go back to his house to take a shower because he can't deal with it. Jerry watches it and can't do it. So he goes to the bedroom and he's just like, can't deal with it. George doesn't know about it yet, and neither does Elaine. But Elaine's problem is a little bit different. So I'm going to take just Jerry and Kramer. So Jerry and Kramer for the first night can't sleep because they don't realize how much they need to investigate their crime scene just to take off pressures of everyday life. And a lot of people use it as a crutch, like literally to get along in life. Like it helps the dopamine levels, it changes things in your perspective, and it allows you to sleep. That's the first thing they paint, is nobody can sleep because nobody's doing it. So the first night when everybody goes to sleep, they're all awake and they all can't sleep because they're on end, including Elaine. And then the next night, Jerry comes out and Kramer's already in his apartment watching his woman, and he was just like, I'll be right back. And he excuses himself, and that's when Elaine and George come in and they're talking. And then out of nowhere, Kramer busts through the door a few minutes later and slaps his money on the table. I'm out. And they're just like, wow, so fast. And he was just like, it's that lady across the street. Like, I can't help it. She's going to get you too, Jerry. And then Jerry's like, wow, I'm still master of my domain. And then there were three. And George, who keeps visiting his mom in the hospital, he's the next one I'm going to take. George keeps visiting his mom in the hospital after the incident, and there's a lady next to the mom, and she keeps getting a sponge bath by a hot nurse. So he gets this silhouette of a woman being bathed, and it's literally sin incarnate falling down on him because his mom's trying to talk to him, and she wants certain things, and he's just looking at the silhouette. So instantly we know George is close to losing the bet. Elaine, which is the long shot, by Dreyfus, she has a workout class where John F. Kennedy Jr. is in, and she's behind him watching him squat and bend and thrust, and then he talks to her and asks her about her situation. So of course the lust starts for her as well. So all of them are literally going back and forth through everything, and it just comes to a point where John F. Kennedy Jr. ends up wanting to date Elaine, and she's literally so much anxiety ridden, something has to give. Jerry is dating a woman who is known as the Virgin, who doesn't want to have sex, who decides she want to have sex for the first time with Jerry, but pulls back. So Jerry, between looking at the woman across in the apartment naked and him being hot and cooled by the Virgin, puts him at stress levels. George, who is watching a literal woman bathe another woman in a sexy silhouette next to him every time he visits his mom in the hospital, he is at maximum peak. So now you have all three at maximum peak, and you're like, who's going to give first? And the funny part is, you would think it would be George or Jerry, but Elaine gives in first. Elaine comes in and gives in first, and then Jerry turns to George and they're just like, are you still master of your domain? I am king of the castle. And they're like, and then there were two. And then you have Jerry and George trying to fight it out, but George can't take it. Jerry can't take it. In the end, they all lose the bet. Jerry ends up failing because he tells his virgin girlfriend about the bet and she leaves him. Elaine loses because John F. Kennedy Jr. drove her to the edge, and she ends up wanting to date him and meet him at Jerry's apartment because she's afraid of her apartment, him meeting her there for some reason. And the Virgin meets John F. Kennedy Jr. and goes off with him, and she loses her virginity to John F. Kennedy, while Elaine is just completely frustrated. Jerry gives in because he can't take it between the Virgin and the naked lady. He was going to call and tell her to close her window, and Kramer told him to stop, and they all end up losing. And the moral of the story is, amongst best friends, there are a lot of things and challenges you can go, and there is no level of high or low when it comes to real good best friends. The fact that they included Elaine, who is the pretty character on the show, I liked it because it brought it down to a different level. If it was just the guys, people are like, oh, dudes are filthy and disgusting and horrible. But adding the female aspect to it and somebody who's pretty like her, it lets you know that even women struggle with the same problem. And at the very core cusp, they're making fun of a problem that literally almost everybody deals with and has to deal with. And I like the way they skirted along it on national television, and I'm surprised the episode didn't get censored or canceled, but they were able to do it. But like I said, you're talking about an earlier time, a thicker skin, and it was a different environment for the world. That's what made this show so brilliant. There are literally so many episodes that are crazy insane that it's funny. There's an episode where Jerry beats a kid in a high school race and he cheated. And as an adult, he's dating a woman named Lois. You get the Lois and the Clark Kent Superman thing. And a guy ends up challenging him to another race because Jerry cheated. To which, when the gun goes off this time, a car backfires before it goes off, and Jerry still takes off first and still wins. And they play the Superman music. Almost to the point of where George is dating a woman and gets cheap envelopes and invitations, and she licks it and dies. So his fiance dies, but he never really wanted to marry her. He just wanted to keep her because he didn't want to be single. There are literal death, life, and craziness things that happen in Seinfeld that in any other series would be a drama, an instant drama. There's even horror elements. There's an episode where they have the Kenny Rogers logo outside the building across the street, and it's flashing into Kramer's apartment, and everything is red. So Kramer can't sleep because there's this beaming red light that lights up his whole apartment, and it's hilarious. So him and Jerry decide to swap apartments because Jerry said he could sleep through anything. And then Jerry's over there, and then Jerry starts to look like Kramer with the hair sticking up, and he can't sleep, and he's on edge, and he has so much anxiety. And then there's this doll called Mr. Marbles that at night, when Jerry's in the apartment, Kramer's apartment, you can hear the bells from it, and you can hear the footsteps of it running around. Kind of like a Child's Play Chucky thing. And it's terrifying, but it's funny because at the same token, you're watching a comedy TV series, and there's another story going on with the Oven Stuffer Roasters and Newman eating it and Jerry eating it, but then they want to get this restaurant closed down, but Newman and Kramer love the chicken. They can't stop eating the chicken because the chicken is amazing. They're greasy and funny. And it's funny because what ends up happening is they end up closing the restaurant. Kramer goes back to his apartment. Jerry comes back to his apartment. And you can see Kramer falling asleep. And then Jerry's in his apartment. And the last few seconds of the episode, they turn off the lights. And when he's in there, you can hear feet and laughing running around his apartment. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Have you ever watched the Goosebumps episode? There's the dummy one. There's Don't Go in the Basement.
I know the dummy one. The dummy's name is Slappy.
Yes. Dummies are creepy. Matter of fact, in everything else, they're horror elements. In Goosebumps, they're horror. In Buffy, they're horror. In Angel, they're horror. These dummy things are horror. Child's Play, horror. Yet Seinfeld is a comedy show. And you wouldn't expect to find horror elements in there, but everything across the spectrum is in there. So as Jerry is pulling the blankets up to his eyes, he can hear things. He says, Mr. Marbles? And the credits roll. It's so over the top, but it's hilarious the way nothing is off the table when it comes to Larry David. And if you ever watch the Larry David show, you know his type of mentality and his type of comedy. Sometimes it's very dark and very crazy. To the same point with Jerry, and you get them two together and hilarity ensues. Even the bloopers are absolutely funny, and some of them they leave in here. If you've ever watched the episode where Elaine dances, oh my god, I hope Dreyfus does not dance like that in real life. I hope she does not dance like that in real life. George ends up there's an episode where he does the opposite of everything, and he succeeds in life just by doing the opposite. There's also an episode where George goes out on a high note where he's talking with people and he makes a joke or something happens and everybody's laughing, and he calls it leaving on a high note, and he's like, that's it for me, and he walks out no matter what's going on, whether it's a meeting, whether he's at dinner, whether at somebody's house, whether he's in a conversation talking with Jerry, Kramer, and Elaine. He's just like, that's it for me, I'm out of here. He's leaving on a high note, and it's funny because you wouldn't think these premises will work, but they stick with you forever. The soup Nazi. Once again, soup, not funny. Nazism, not funny. You put the soup Nazi together where this guy chooses whether or not you can eat soup or ban from the soup place, which has the best soup in the world, but you have to come in and order a certain way. You have to ask for it a certain way. You have to act a certain way, or you get no soup. And the guy's very quickly, no soup for you. 1 year. 2 soups for you. No 1 year. And it's funny because the guy that plays the soup Nazi, I actually met on a trip to New York one time. And it's funny because I didn't know it was him. I really didn't know it was him. I went to New York and we did like a Statue of Liberty tour, and they did Manhattan and everything for a day, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But when we saw him, it was in the lower Manhattan area, and people kept pointing at him and taking pictures when he was walking by. And I was like, who's that? And it was like, it's the soup guy. And I'm like, the soup guy? Like, I figured he was like a famous chef or something. But it didn't equate it to him being the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, which is funny. It's hilarious. Because now when I watch the show, I'm like, I had a chance to actually see that guy. I wouldn't have walked over and said something to him. Like, that's over the line. I wouldn't have done that. But I don't know. Maybe I would have took a picture of that guy or something, or said something to him. I've met a lot of stars. That would be great to have the soup Nazi on my resume of meeting him. But Seinfeld is full of many episodes like that, where all kind of craziness ensues. Matter of fact, I can't think of one episode that I watched that I didn't like. And I can't say that about a lot of TV series. Matter of fact, I can't say that about most TV series. Almost every episode of Seinfeld I watched, I liked. And sometimes I had laughed so hard. You ever laugh so hard that your chest hurts, your stomach is cramped, and you're laughing so hard you feel like you're going to die because you can't breathe? I've done that on a lot of episodes of Seinfeld. Matter of fact, I used to put Seinfeld on when I got home from work, turn over and go to sleep, because I wanted it in the background. I wanted to hear it. And I watched all the episodes. But there were certain episodes where I'm nodding off and going to sleep, and I hear something happen, and I start laughing in bed, and then for the next 2-3 hours I'm up because of Seinfeld. Like, it's a feel-good blanket of a show, and it's definitely binge-worthy if you've never watched it. So what would I get Seinfeld, since I just learned happened in 1989, what would I get Seinfeld on the scale of metallics here in the Game Dojo? It's a triple platinum series. I have nothing negative to say about the show, and for those of you who are thinking about putting in the comments, I'm going to address it because I'm the game ninja. I don't run away from drama, and I understand. What I'm alluding to is there was a situation with Kramer. Kramer in the TV series is a comedian in real life. He was having a set in a comedy club, and he was being heckled by some people on stage, some unruly people. And he chose to use a word to describe the people as ignorant. We'll just leave it at that. The notorious N-bomb was used. And a lot of people had canceled him, had canceled the actor. They had canceled watching Seinfeld. They had canceled the whole experience. And look, I'm not trying to say whether or not the guy was wrong or right with being heckled at a comedy show, and that he may as well have those feelings shared in his heart. He may as well not. But on the same token, there's a time and place for everything. I would probably, even though hearing it, I would probably have to be there to see what was said and how it was said in the context, because I'm not going to be hypocritical. I've used the word quite a few times to describe some amazingly ignorant people. And it's not one of those things where, oh, I could use it because I'm brown skinned. I could use it because I'm brown skinned. The word by definition is defined as a very ignorant person. Has it been used as a slur racially? Absolutely. Has it been used negatively? Absolutely. But the word was also taken back and changed by rappers from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. So now you can use it as a term of endearment. You listen to a DMX song. It's a term of endearment, or it can be a term of disrespect. It all depends on how you use the word, period. No matter who uses it, whether you're Paula Deen, whether you're DMX, or whether you're Kramer from Seinfeld. So yeah, let's address that. It happened. It does happen. It probably will happen forever. Context, time, date, point. And I'm not going to be hypocritical because I myself have used it. I myself have used it in street fights. Sometimes you get angry and upset. It's a throwback word that comes right out of your mouth, from your vocabulary, into the situation, if the situation calls for it. Sometimes even not if the situation calls for it. We all know the word. We all understand the word. We all know whether it ends in an ER or a GA. There's a different terminology, whether it's in a rap record, whether it's being used by people who wear, I don't know, white clothing, or whether or not it is a term of endearment from bruv to bruv. The word itself there's 1,000 words that mean very painful, horrible things, which is why you should take caution what comes out of your mouth, because there's certain words you can't take back. Once they're said, they're venom. They bite, they soak, they do what they're designed to do. Words do hurt. Anybody who ever went to East Camden Middle back in the day, you know how people used to come into classrooms, turn the lights off, and throw dictionaries in the room. Ah! You hear people yelling because somebody get busted in the head with a thesaurus or a Webster dictionary, them big ass ones. Words hurt, whether figuratively or literally. Words hurt. So there you go. Now I addressed it. It's over with. It's done. It's off the table. Now, whether these actors, who they are in real life, has nothing to do with the TV series. I always say it 1,000 times before. You can separate the artist from the art. If people ask me, do you hate Kramer for that moment, that one moment in time, and I don't know anything else about the guy, I'm not going to demonize somebody off the one moment perspective, because I myself have made many mistakes in life, and there is no justification sometimes for the mistakes that we make. You can go back and give something to somebody if you've taken something from them, and then sometimes that bridge is just burnt forever. But I am somebody who's very old in age. I grew up on R. Kelly. Yes, I'm still going to listen to R. Kelly songs. You may not like the man. I may not like the man, but the songs are fire. You expect me not to jam the Fiesta if I'm playing Mario Kart? No, I am. You have Kevin Spacey, who I've seen in 1,000 movies, get demonized over this and that. Did you ever read the retraction? Did you ever read what happened when the case was stopped? Did you ever read what happened when people pull back their cases? This world wants you to hate and demonize people for being human and making mistakes. Here's the thing. Some of the best friendships in the world start as enemies. In martial arts, the highest level of martial arts is making a friend out of an enemy. When somebody is your enemy, they mean to do you harm. They mean to hurt you. They mean sometimes to end your life. If the highest level of martial arts is making a friend out of an enemy, and the biggest victory in life is taking an enemy and turning him into a friend, then that means everybody can be redeemed. Everybody has a redemption arc to their storyline. It only matters if you live long enough to see the redemption of your story. There's an old additive. Either live long enough to see yourself become the hero of your own story, or live even longer and see yourself become the villain of your own story. Remember that. There's two sides to a coin to everybody. There's the representative you meet, and then there's the real person that they are. The choice in the matter is whether or not you choose to, and I'll use the expression most young kids use nowadays, fuck with. If you choose to fuck with the person, it don't matter. You're going to mess with them at their best. You're going to mess with them at their worst. You're going to mess with them when they good. You're going to mess with them when they fail. Period. 100%. It happens. It's about investment. One of my best friends, and this is one of my favorite stories. One of my best friends, Kev. If you see this, sorry, my throat is dry. Kevin, if you see this, his name is Kevin Harity. My brother Phil knows about this. All the people who were present at the time know about this. When I first met Kevin, me and him weren't friends. Matter of fact, we were sitting in the back of an art classroom, Mr. Carpenter's art classroom, and we were kind of going at each other. Literally, there was, like, I guess because he had a different style of martial arts than I was studying at the time. And when it comes to martial artists, you always go and knock heads. My style is better. Your style is trash. Oh, I can do this. My style is that. Your style is that. My style is that. Something so stupid and trivial. And we ended up going at each other to the point where we were literally physically going to fight. And it's funny because over something as stupid and as minuscule as that. The funny part is, this guy is one of my best friends to this day. He's like a brother to me. So much to the point where I would say if you fast forward 2 to 3 weeks later, same class, same teacher, our desk placements are in the exact same place. Now we making each other laugh. We've literally pushing the desk forward and back, making noise, driving Carpenter crazy, and people making us laugh. We joking with each other. We fucking with each other. Now me and him are boys. And it's funny because you're like, how did we get here? I hated you, you hated me, and we got here. It's because that lesson in martial arts, making a friend out of an enemy, what really is pushing you against that person? What is really so different about that person that you hate? Is it something that you hate in them, or is it something in you that you hate about yourself that they can see? It becomes a point where a mirror has to be flipped around on yourself. Honestly, to this day, I can't remember how me and him went from hating each other to becoming so close. But to this day, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. Kev, if you out there, matter of fact, I might even tag you and send you this video and let you know about it. Bro, you have been blood and a brother to me longer than the internet has been established in this world, bruh. Like, me and you go back so far, like, I can't even remember what we fought about and how we first got into that point. But I also remember you getting into a fight and me being one of the first ones there. I remember you going to metal shop and making ninja stars. I remember Phil getting you back. I remember Deese being there. I remember our entire squad was willing to squad and die for you and stand up and fight for you in a moment's notice when we just heard, yo, Kev got this problem, blah, 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 blah. Do you see how close we came? Literally in one school year, in a matter of months, we went from getting ready to fight and hating each other to literally being blood almost 35 years later. Think about that shit. It's insane. But this is what I mean when it comes back to people like Kramer in his moment. You can judge people for their mistakes. You can attack people for their lowest moments. But you have to be willing to invest to celebrate them at their lowest and at their highest. We all have moments. We all have low points. And I didn't really come here to be Mr. Rogers and tell you guys how to live your life and forgive your peoples and forgive your enemies. But this is the thing. When you let people live rent-free in you forever, they're not thinking about you walking around their life. They're eating freeze pops and ice cream and skipping. They ain't thinking about you. But for you, you're letting that person live rent-free in your head. So understand, forgive yourself first. Forgive yourself for weakness. Forgive yourself for anger. Forgive yourself for not being better in a moment that you would have wanted to be better in. And in forgiving yourself, you have the ability to forgive them. Some people can do things that can't be forgotten. But you could be like, I can't forget, but I forgive. We ain't never gonna be boys. But it's alright. It's cool. I could deal with you. If I was in a room and we was at a buffet, I ain't gonna pick up a fork and stab you in the eye. Like, we can get to that point. But that's an adult thing and a maturity thing. You don't learn that when you're young. You learn that as you get older. And when it comes from a martial arts standpoint, people have died over conflicts that they can't even understand. Y'all heard of the Hatfields and the McCoys? Their children's children were murdering each other without even knowing why. This is the problem with humanity as a whole, is that we are never willing to forgive and we are never willing to see. There is a picture, there's a video clip, and it's not AI. There's a video clip of a bear, a lion, and a wolf in a reserve just walking together. They had all eaten, so they was full, so their primal urge to attack and kill and eat food wasn't on the table. And they clearly don't fucks with each other. But just on this day, at this time, in this one moment, they was all walking together. And I don't mean like 20 feet from each other. I mean literally together. For a moment's time. The worst apex enemies of all time. In animals. They could put their differences aside and just fucking walk together. We all heading to the same place. I ain't got no beef with you. You ain't got no beef with me. Are we not smarter than animals? Are we not higher than animals? If they can do it, we can do it. It's simple as that. Parlay. So Seinfeld triple platinum series. I ain't mean to go into the whole Mr. Rogers thing and let y'all know that. Kev, I'm gonna tag you in this video, bro. I was just thinking about that the other day. Me and you and the Mortal Kombat, the sound effects, like, I can't believe how close we got literally after wanting to kill each other. It's insane. It's insane. But we here now. I like that. I love that, matter of fact. And as I get older in the tooth and a bruh get that gray and that age heading up in them, like, I don't even remember what we really fought about, but I do remember how much I love you. And that's real. And I love that. And I'm going to die with that in my heart. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I will see you in the Game Dojo. Seinfeld. Stream it, like it, buy it, own the DVD collection. You can probably go to Walmart and get all 5 seasons for like $20 since they trying to phase out DVDs now. It's probably cheap as hell. It's probably cheaper than that. But go and watch Seinfeld. It may change and lift your life in moments of levity that you don't realize you need. It's just one of those shows that you don't realize you wanted to see and that you need, but once you start watching it, you realize your soul needed it. Seinfeld. Something just as simple as Seinfeld. Till next time. 10 seasons? 9 seasons? Well, there you go. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining me here in the Game Dojo, where we were talking about Seinfeld. I'll see you guys later.